easy project with memory wire. And this is using some supplies from my stash, but also to showcase what I just got from my new friends at Globleland.com. Now again, I have a coupon to get 10% off. I will share that below. I am just tickled pink with these turtles, so that's what I thought I would do for my first project. Now I went through my stash and picked some beads that I thought would coordinate well with that pastel version of pink. These were just for my stash though. I've got some that are shell mixed with resin, and that's a very light pink, but I thought that that looked turtley in the pink, so I'm probably going to do that. And then I thought these agates were really pretty with that light pink, and then that purple. It's kind of a purpley blue. It's right up Sparkle by Monica Alley, just about. It's not quite blue. It's like a periwinkle bluish purple. But I thought that I would play with those beads along with some others from my stash. Got a little sparkle, some white, and then memory wire. Now, this is a memory wire necklace that I'm going to create today, and I'm going to probably not use the wire end caps here. These are for memory wire. I'm just going to make loops on the end of my necklaces. I wanted to show you how I use my bead design board. Now, this is going to be a little bit different because memory wire is not the same as using your regular bead stringing wire, which I have some right here. This bead stringing wire is not something that is tough or hardened like artistic wire that you've probably had experience with. Artistic wire and memory wire are two totally different things. Memory wire is hardened, and so it maintains its coil shape. You can get it in a ring coil. You can get it in, I think, like 3 different, like small, medium, large bracelet coil sizes, or you can get necklace coil sizes. A lot of times people wear these as choker necklaces. I have given myself a little bit extra length in the amount of coils that I cut in order to create a necklace. And then the weight of the beads, I'm hoping, will kind of pull it down away from my neck a little bit. I've made several necklaces out of the memory wire. I don't get a lot of requests for them. I do get a ton of requests for memory wire bracelets though, because they're just so easy. It's like putting a slinky on your arm, but it's just extra sparkly. But the bead stringing wire has a certain amount of strands that are compacted together. This is a 7-strand beading wire that holds your beads on a strand, but you need a clasp like this toggle clasp here in order to finish your ends, and then you can put that on and not be afraid that it's going to fall off. Whereas memory wire, you can either choose to do loops on the ends, or you can do those memory wire end caps. A lot of people like to do the loops on the ends, and then they will add like a chain extender and a clasp. That way, especially for a necklace, you don't want your necklace to fall off of you. And if you do have some kind of heavier beads that hang a little bit differently than a collar style or a cuff style, you'd want to add a chain closure on the back and a little lobster claw to grab hold of the loop. That way you're 100% sure that you're secure and not losing your necklace. I can't lay my bead stringing material out here on my board. I'm going to just be feeding it directly onto the memory wire. I am going to still utilize the bead design board here in order to lay out my pattern. I do that with everything. That way I have time to change it before I actually put things together. And I'm probably going to do an 18-inch. So if you have never used a bead design board before, let me show you. So let's grab one of these little beautiful turtles. I just think he's so cute. I'm going to put it right here. My board has a little indentation for a pendant, which is very handy. So I'm going to put that at the 0 spot of my board. We have inches on the outer track, and we have inches on the inner track. And you also can have half-inch little spacers in between here. Very handy on the board. If you use the inner track, I use that whenever I have like a double-stranded necklace, because you lose an inch as you go into the next track. If I want to just have a single-strand necklace, I always just do it here on the outside track because it's the one closest to me anyway, and it just makes more sense to do it that way. But you're going to start at your 0 point, and then you're going to count upwards in inches until you get to the length that you want. So I want an 18-inch necklace. I'm going to go from 0 up to 9 on both sides, and that will give me 18 inches in total. Now, something you want to keep in mind with, if you want something exact 18 inches, let's say we were going to put a clasp on it, like a lobster claw clasp and a split ring, that typically would add up to about an inch. And you would want to incorporate that measurement into your overall measurement here. So if you wanted to have an 18-inch necklace, you would want to adjust down And I usually just put my clasp and my split ring on my board to kind of hold my place. That way I don't go over it if it needs to be exact. Tools that you'll need for memory wire are a little bit different in your cutter. Now this is a memory wire cutter, and you can see that it looks a lot different from the flush cutter that I have. This flush cutter doesn't look a thing like my memory wire cutter. And that's because this is a heavy duty wire cutter that can handle memory wire. It's specifically meant for memory wire, and it will not gouge. If you try to use one of your, like your flush cutters or your semi-flush cutters that's not meant for memory wire, it's just meant for artistic wire, which is softer, then you're gonna take out little chunks from your flush cutter and ruin your plier, and that's not nice, especially as expensive as some of them can be. But otherwise, you can use the rest of your regular tools. So I have some round nose pliers here that I'm going to use to help make the loops on the ends. And then I'm just going to cut apart my beads and figure out my pattern that I want to lay out here and string them on, and then make the other loop. So it's very easy. Again, if I wanted to add a clasp, I could. And I don't think that I am going to do the end caps. So we will just make a standard looped memory wire necklace. All right, so I have my little round nose pliers here, and I'm just going to get to the very tip, and depending on how big of a loop you want is the amount down on your plier that you want to go. So I don't like to have big huge loops because it gets caught in your hair, or if you're wearing it on your wrist it'll get caught in your clothes. So I'm kind of pretty far down on my plier to make a small loop, but you need to get a good enough hold on it to where you can make the turn, because this is a lot harder wire than what you're used to. And I don't have anything poking out here because I want to be right on the edge of that wire. And I'm going to turn it back towards myself. Try to stay in the same area if you happen to let go. Carpal tunnel, this might be a little hard, but there is a loop. And then I'm going to just take my bent nose pliers, or you can use your flat nose pliers if you don't have bent nose, and either squeeze lightly, or then I've got it now close enough here to where I can just finish rolling, because I want to pretty much be touching that stem there so that I don't have any kind of a gap, because if I decide that I want to put a charm or something on there, I don't want it coming off. But the beads themselves won't come off now because I have the loop. And I do like to roll it away from how you're going to wear it, especially if you're talking about a bracelet. If you rolled it inwards, then it would irritate your neck, I think, or your wrist if you were making a bracelet. So then once I get my bead pattern laid out, I can just start feeding this on, and that's going to be stopped by that loop. Just going to grab the end that I did not make the loop, and I'm going to start feeding on my beads in my pattern that I have here on my board. I tried to put something to stop my beads from flying around. I don't want them rolling all the way back to my board because this board's really long. But it's just very simple. I'm just feeding all of the beads. This is why I like to use my bead design board, because it gives me time enough to decide if I like the design, make any kind of little changes that I might be thinking I want to do. This is going to be the end. I want my turtle to be facing upwards. This turtle is going to be facing upwards on that side of the necklace. So just be mindful of if it bothers you. If you want to have your turtles a certain way or whatever your beads, if you're doing like a specialized bead and you want it a certain direction. This could work either way, but I didn't want to have my turtles facing downwards. Okay, so that's all I'm doing is just feeding on beads, and here I will need to go ahead and create a charm with the little pendant that I want to make, and then that way I can put that on here as I'm beading. Okay, so since this is just artistic wire that is in the shape of a head pin, and that looks like just like a nail head there, it's not that loop like an eye pin is, I'm just going to easily put my beads on here. And my other little container of beads from Globleland, they had some of these metal spacers here, and I'm going to use these to go in between the beads. Just kind of break it up a little bit and give it a little extra sparkle. How cute is that? Easier to deal with something on the top of your turtle head than not, because you don't want to scratch your little turtle face. So I could use my simple loop or my one-step loop tool over here to just make a simple loop, but because I want my turtle to face front ways, I want to just make a wrapped loop. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers and just pull, make a 90-degree bend, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down, and then I'm going to go up, and then go onto the bottom of my plier. I moved it over to my other hand like a relay race, and then I'm going to grab hold of the tail, pull that back towards myself, give that a squeeze. Now I've got a little loop there, and then I'm just going to take that tail and wrap it around until it stops moving my bead. Depends on if you want like a messy wrap. Some people really like that. I do not like that, so I'm trying to make it neat, but it doesn't always work that way. You might be in a situation where you've kind of gotten out of whack a little bit like I did, but you can still save it if you go ahead and cut off this little bit here and then tuck it in, because this isn't moving anywhere as it stands, but I want it to be tucked in, and then it's so close there as I'm going around here and squeezing that wire in, it is pushing the coil back up the neck and straightening that up for me so it doesn't look as messy. And I don't have any pokey bits. There's a little turtle. Now, in order for me to put this on without the turtle being sideways, I'm going to get a little jump ring and open that up to grab hold of my turtle. The jump ring will be what is on the necklace itself, in between the two white beads here at the center, and then my turtle will be facing right. So if I want to close my jump ring, just open and close like you would a door. You don't want to go like this. You want to go front or back in order to close that, because if you do it the other way, you can ruin the strength of the circle and then it might break easy. So now I can pop that on when I get down to this part of my necklace. I've gotten here to the point of my middle section before I pop on my pendant, and this is a springy little necklace here, so just be mindful of that when you're playing. I wanted to put 2 additional silver spacers in between what was going to happen with my little pendant. And the turtle is the same on either side, so even if it turns around, that's fine, but I did want to keep that front facing if at all possible. This necklace can go on either way, so it's not really that big of a deal, but if you had like a clasped necklace, like you're using a toggle clasp or using especially if you're using a lobster style clasp, and you want to make sure that your design is front facing, then you've got to think about things like your pendant and all that. And see, when this goes on here, then you'll be able to see the turtle. It'll set off the design nicely. So, alrighty, so I got to the end here. I still have quite a lot of this memory wire left, but I am just going to go ahead and make that same 18-inch necklace, and then I'm going to show you how to add some chain onto those loops if that's something that you wanted to do. But I have got to first cut the end. Now, I could have continued my beadwork here, but if you want it to be kind of like on your collar or like a choker necklace, this is the size here as far as how it rests on me. On someone else, this 18-inch, especially being that it's memory wire and kind of circular like that, it might be a little bit longer on you. So you would go for a little bit shorter, like 14 or 15 inches. You just kind of have to get a feel for the types of necklaces that you like to wear. Or if you have someone that is asking you like what would be their size, and you've got your handy dandy tape measure, then you just have them, or you can take it, just pull it out and then put that around their neck. You can also use like a piece of ribbon or whatnot if you don't have one of these fabric tape measures. Put that around their neck and then take the end and go wherever it's comfortable for them as far as how they want the necklace to lay. Now, a traditional necklace that's going to be hanging from your bead stringing wire that is like this stuff here, that is going to be something that's going to hang a little bit more down and flush, whereas this type of necklace on the memory wire is springy because it's that memory wire. So it's going to be more round, and it might, lay differently. It also depends on the types of beads that are used and whatnot. If they're really petite, like seed bead size beads, or if they're just like a standard size, like these 8mm, and I think I've got a 10mm on there too. So they want a 16-inch. You just take this up to the 16-inch when it's around their neck. And is that comfortable for you? And they say yes. Then you know that that's what's going to help you measure the beadwork. But also remember if you're using any kind of clasp. So if you are using just a regular bead stringing method where you're using the beading wire, or even if you're doing like a knotting technique with some kind of thread or something like that, then just be mindful if you need a clasp in the overall. Like if they say don't go any longer than 16 inches, then make sure that how you lay it out on your board and put it together is going to add up to what you've got here on this tape measure. Because isn't that satisfying? So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to cut this off and then we're going to put some chain on. In terms of how I like to do my loop, I'm not going to have a whole lot of this wire left. So I would rather cut it a little bit larger than what I need, because there's still a way that I can shave this down, but it's very minimal because these are not like your flush cutters, so you can't get into a tight spot. So you don't want to have an extra large loop. I mean, even this might be a little bit too large, but I'm going to put some chain on it and everything. If you don't want it hanging in your hair and all that stuff, then you might want to do those memory wire caps, but I mean, even those can still get caught in your hair, just, telling you. But I just like to do the loops. So I'm going to come in here and just cut mine off and make the loop. So there's no rhyme or reason as far as which side you're going to do this with, because it's going to cut no matter what. If I need to make a loop about the same size as I have on the other side there, I think I'm going to cut this much off, and that's going to leave me about a 1/2 inch of wiggle room. So 1/2 inch. Get my round nose pliers, and I'm going to get on the part of the plier that I'm comfortable with having the loop size. I still have a pretty good 1/2 inch, a little bit less than a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to roll that backwards towards myself and then reposition so I've got more strength. Try to get on that same area of your plier and just keep rolling that back and down, and try not to scratch your bead. And the memory wire may move around on you as you're trying to do this because the beads get in the way, but just try your best. I think I'm gonna have to go the rest of the way with my bent nose pliers, but yeah, so there we go. I'm still going to come in here with my bent nose pliers. You can see that little loop right there. It's pretty much touching. Using the round nose pliers is the best way to close your loops. But when working with memory wire, it's a little bit difficult if you have carpal tunnel or any kind of dexterity problems in the way that I do with my old hands here. So you're going to have to use whatever tools works best for you. You may or may not be worried about the size of your loops, but if you notice here, this one here, my very first loop, is larger than the one here on the left. Now, because it's on the back of my neck, I wouldn't care about that, right? You want to try to get as close to possible the same, just for symmetry in your design. But if you can't, and you want to absolutely cut this down, you can try if you've got enough space. Now, but see how big and clunky the memory wire is compared to the flush cutter? See, I could get right in there with the flush cutter like I would if I were messing with some artistic wire, and I could go in there and cut just a little nub off. But if I did that, it would take a chunk out of my flush cutters, and we don't want that because those are expensivo. So if I wanted to try it, like if this were a little bit larger, I might try to get in there and squeeze it, but I don't think I'm going to. I just found a mistake. Can anybody point it out? Darn. I put a silver bead here, and I forgot to put a silver bead over here on this end. Now, in the broad scheme of things, is it going to be okay? Yes. Are most people going to notice it? Probably not. I will, because I'm type A. So I would probably cut this apart and redo it, and Lord knows I've got plenty of this wire here. But I'm going to use this to kind of show you, now that I've seen my mistake, and I'm going to show you how to deal with it in the mistake. I want to come here, see if I can get in there. Okay, now I've cut just a little bit off. Now, before anything starts really trying to wiggle around on me a whole lot, I'm going to just get my plier in there and I'm going to roll, trying to keep the beadwork down. I'm just going to keep rolling it down. And I want to try to stay on that same spot of my plier. So that actually worked. I'm shocked at myself. I didn't think I'd be able to get that in there so close, because it needed to be just a little bit bigger to get a better cut. But I have this size loop now, and that more accurately reflects the other size loop. So had I had this bead on the other side, then guess what, guys? This necklace would be done. And you wouldn't necessarily have to do the next step that I'm going to show you by putting a chain on or anything, because this went around my neck fine as a collar or just slightly a choker. So, I mean, this would work. But if you're going to be running around doing a lot of stuff, you might be uncomfortable with having this just open and kind of resting on your neck instead of having a closure. Now, I have a roll of chain here, and I've just used a jump ring to kind of keep both ends together. Let's go over here to our measurement, shall we? We're at the 9 on both sides of my board because I'm holding it right here in this outer track. This is going to be holding its shape pretty much, so it's going to be a little bit more round than a regular size necklace that tapers down the front of your chest. It's going to really look more like a collar style necklace. So I'm going to do, I think, 2 inches, because then that'll give me up to a 20-inch necklace. So I'm going to come over here on my mat that you can see all the little checkerboard design here. I've got a mat on my table. I'm just going to lay this chain down to where I'm at exactly the 2 inches. So I've taken my chain apart. I'm actually going to go ahead and attach this to one side of my necklace before I close that up, so it's directly onto that loop. And I'm going to hold this with my flat nose pliers over here, and because those beads are kind of in my way, it's going to be a little bit cumbersome. But I'm going to pull this back towards myself so I can close the door, giving it a squeeze, making sure that it's closed and there's no big gap. I'm going to count my links and then take it apart and then add my little jump ring and a clasp. I took off 9 links. Now I'm popping that little tiny jump ring on because that's what I'm going to use to attach a lobster claw clasp to, but I wanted to make sure I get my link closed back. So there's the link, and I'm giving it a little squeeze. And you can see now I have this rounded tiny jump ring. And I'm going to open that up, because it's easier to grab a lobster claw clasp and put it on these rounded jump rings than it is those chain links, because they're oval and they're small. So you don't want to have anything that's kind of cumbersome. Just closing that back up, giving that a squeeze. Now on one side, I have the lobster claw clasp. Now I need to just attach the other bit of chain. So here we go. We got this little bit of chain, and now because I have the lobster clasp over here, technically I could grab hold of that little bit right there, but I want to get one of those larger jump rings now so it's easier to grab hold of. So I opted for a split ring because it's just a little bit more secure and it's a little bit larger. So I'm going to grab hold of this last link on that side of the chain. I'm going to put the split ring on there, and then I'm going to just close the door of that tiny jump ring. Now I have split ring on one side, and then I have the lobster claw clasp on the other side, and I can attach that. And now we have this little bit of chain that I am actually a proponent of the chain. That is my little tiny turtle necklace on memory wire, and I just absolutely love these pink turtles. I mean, how cute is that? I think the shell beads look really great with that. I'm going to make a pair of earrings to match. I have my head pin here for a pair of earrings. So I'm going to pop on one of the little silver balls and a turtle. I'm going to need a couple more of these shell beads. I love these beads. They're so pretty, and they come in so many different colors too. It's like an amalgam put in resin. Ultimately, it makes it look so cute because it looks like something that is just a regular stone. All right, so I've got a spacer, and we want a white bead, my wooden whites, and then put the turtle on, and another little spacer or round bead, however you want to call it. So there, it looks just exactly like what's hanging on the necklace. I've got my round nose plier sitting right on top of that middle spacer bead, and then I'm just going to push that over with my thumb to make a 90-degree bend. And I don't want to move my plier off of this head pin. When I'm teaching, I do that from time to time so you can see a little bit better, but you want to kind of keep it in the same spot. Now, if you have a pair of pliers that's like a silver tip, and you always decide that you want a certain size of a loop, you can take a Sharpie marker and mark it exactly on the area that you always know gives you the size loop that you like. and then keep it on that mark, and then that will help guide you as you get more practice. You may not need it, but on these black here, I could still mark that if I wanted to, but you can plainly see the wear on that black area there, and that's typically always the size loop that I make. I don't want a huge loop because I don't want it to get entangled up in anybody's hair. So we've got a 90-degree bend. I'm going to reposition my plier to go vertical, and then I'm going to go up, over, and down. Take my plier out, so now I have like this question mark looking thing going on. I'm going to put it on the bottom rung of my plier. I'm going to hand it off like I'm in a relay race here. So now I'm in my left hand because I'm right-handed, so I like to do everything with my right hand action-wise. So I'm going to pull this tail towards myself, and then that is hugging the plier. It makes a nice little loop. I like to use my bent nose plier, grab hold of that tail, and make a wrap all the way around the neck of this head pin so that I can get a nice tight wrap. So that's what I'm doing here. And you might want to go slow so that you don't have any problems unless you like the messy wrap. I've got, what is that, 2 wraps? I think I can probably go one more time. You see that little tiny gap right here on the back? I just want to fill in that gap, and I'm going to cut it off about right there, and then I'm going to try to push the tip in to the back of that ear wire. This one I won't need to clean up. If you remember when I made the pendant, I had it a little bit wonky, and I was able to clean it up by pushing that tip in there. But this one did just right. I like to try to keep the piece that I cut off towards the back, and then I like the front of my wrap to have the pretty side towards me. I think this side is not the pretty side because it obviously looks like the back because there's the back end of the neck, whereas this is front facing. To me, that just looks more natural. So if you're worried about anything kind of poking you or whatever, this isn't poking me, but I can tell that I cut it off. Pushed in the tip, it could have gone just a little bit further so that you wouldn't see that little gap there, or you wouldn't have any kind of little bit there. It's still a pretty wrap, so I'm not too upset by it. That actually fixed it a little bit better. All right, so now it's turned the way I want it, and I'm just going to add it onto some ear wires, but I've got to make me another one here. All right, so here is a French style ear wire, and I'm just going to turn it upside down because it's easier for me to tell where the break is on that loop. And I'm going to pull this up towards myself so that I've opened that up. And because the loop part is what you're going to be seeing when you're looking at someone with an earring on, whichever side that you decide is your front facing side is how you're going to put it on to match that little curve. So in other words, this will be your front of your earring because you don't want to put that on backwards, especially if you've got a printed design. This one, it really doesn't matter as much. I just didn't like the thought of having my turtle moving around all over the place on the ear wire. So I'm just giving this little squeeze, closing the door. And now I have a cute little earring. Oh my gosh, that is so cute. I don't know if I'll be able to give these up. They're too cute. The good thing I've got a box full of those turtles, right? So now there's my earrings with my necklace, guys. Oh my goodness gracious, I love that. Necklace part 2. I was able to take this apart and remake with another coil of the memory wire over there. So you can see I fixed my mistake. I have the little silver bead ending on each side. That just drives me crazy when I do stuff like that. I know you do too. Don't pretend that you don't. I'm just really tired. We got a lot of stuff going on at home and work, and a lot of friends and family are having storm-related issues with hurricane stuff. So my mind is in a million different places. This turned out so cute. I'm so happy with it. And then my little pink turtles just make me smile every time I look at them. This is the corrected necklace. You can see on the back, it all matchy-matchies. Now I feel like I have really accomplished something, guys. But yeah, this is the earring set with the necklace. I did this as an 18 inch as you saw, and then we have the extra 2 inches back there in the chain work. It's a nice little rounded shape, and it's very flattering, I think, especially on this display here. So again, if you are interested in any of the products that I have listed below that I received from Globleland.com, I will have my affiliate link and my coupon code that you can use to get 10% off of your order with them. I've got a couple more projects for you. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and share this with any of your jewelry making friends that might be interested in the goodies at Globleland.com. If you've not already done so, please subscribe to my channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a sparkle-rific day, y'all.